Hey everybody, I'm back. Wanted to do a very quick video on this game. Uh, Basically, I have kind of a dual purpose. So one is I want to give my first impressions, which are generally positive, and secondly, I want to talk about some options that are in the console version, at least in the PS4 version of this game, that I think will make a huge impact in this game. So this is Redout Space Assault. Very small game. I don't know anything about the developer. I think that Redout might be a series of games, but I'm not 100% sure about that. In any case, I heard about this game through a YouTube reviewer named Screen Stars, and they said go check it out. But basically, while I was watching the review and I was looking at the footage, it just became very obvious to me that this game has a lot uh, that it's borrowing from Star Fox 64, which is a game I love. So I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going to try this game. When I saw that it was $10, yeah, I was like, that's a no-brainer. I'll spend $10 on a game. Now, surprisingly, this is a pretty feature-complete game. Well, I should say this is first impressions, not a review. I'm less than a third through the game, but I've essentially done the tutorial, or at least that's what it feels like so far. Um, I guess let's get into the controls because this game has a default button layout that I think works against it, and it also kind of doesn't make sense if you think about it. But fortunately, you can change that, and I think it much improves the game. So basically, this is my now reformed button layout. And basically, what you're going to do is you're gonna remove these alternatives, which are mapped to the right control stick, and you're going to remove them. Now, the way this setup works, it might take you a little bit of finagling to get the right buttons on the right things. But yeah, so basically the pitch and the yaw I leave untouched. I did experiment with having the pitch on the right controller stick, but that didn't really work. As I said, I removed all binding for these because, again, these are double, so you don't really need two of the same function on the controller, and I'll explain why it needs to be changed at all. So fire missile, I believe that is the default setting, but now we get into some of the changes. So R1 normally makes you roll right, so basically it's kind of like a Star Fox setup. But I found that it's a lot easier for me to just map the rolling to the right stick, to the left and right directions of the right stick, and go ahead and map the boost to R1, map the brakes to L1, okay, and then the only other face button I'm going to be using is the square button, which is to change my weapons. Now, I still have buttons left over, so the right stick up and down directions could be used to, like, boost or brake. But I don't really, since it is an analog button and you could hit something by mistake, I think it's better just to leave these blank. And then basically with this controller setup, you're not really moving your thumb off the right joystick ever. Because the square button, which is used to change weapons, is only used occasionally. So with this controller setup, you are able to do everything with the left joystick, the shoulder or bumper buttons, if you want to call them, and the right joystick, which is not used as much. With this setup, I found the game to be way more enjoyable than the default layout, which, like, the game is good, but it does feel a little clunky out of the box. So I was very happy to see these options and find that there was a solution for me. But in general, even if you don't adopt this exact same setup, just know that you can come in here and kind of tweak it. I do think the game needs to be tweaked a little bit out of the box to work better. Now, just to give you kind of a tour, so again, this is very much like Star Fox. where the majority of the levels are linear on rails shooters, and then you have areas or levels or parts of levels that become like open-ended flying, and you just kind of fly around until you destroy a target. I haven't had anything too complicated so far. I'll show you. Basically, Chapter 1 is all tutorials. And as you can see, each mission has the green, over here on the right, has the green condition which must be fulfilled, and then 2 optional conditions. You get money when you complete a mission, and then you can use that to upgrade your ship. So yeah, this whole Chapter 1 is basically tutorials, how to like break, evade missiles, stuff like that, very basic. Chapter 2 is also feels a very tutorial-ish, but kind of like branching out a little bit more as far as like mission objectives. Now, I will say so far the game is pretty simple, so there's not like complicated objectives, unless that comes about in the later part of the game. The game is basically a shooter, and it's pretty simple. Again, $10 game, so don't expect much. But I don't think it's a very strong drop in quality. As you can see, Chapter 2 is a lot shorter, and both Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 end with a boss, which is kind of basically a big ship that you have to take down. I did feel like the Chapter 2 boss was kind of what do you call it, a roadblock. So I did have to grind some money to defeat it, which is okay. I don't mind a difficult game. It did feel like that was definitely the most difficult mission that I've had to do, simply because it was on a time limit. Basically, you have to destroy the ship before it leaves. And there's a little bit of difficulty in the movement, which I felt makes it kind of unfair. But that's okay, if the game makes me want to, or wants me to grind to complete certain sections, that's okay. I'm not going to put a whole lot of weight on that for this kind of game where you can, pick up and play easily. But I did think that, considering that the game really isn't that complex, I really feel like Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 could be condensed into a more interesting tutorial, basically. So that's kind of my only complaint really so far. Let's get into some gameplay. Actually, I guess I'll just show the first mission. Okay, so as you can see, this is my ship. It's been upgraded. There's actually some very nice color options, including I found this. Wait, Genesis. Huh, I think that's also a Neon Genesis reference. But this is definitely a Neon Genesis reference. I mean, that's the color scheme of the Ava Unit 1, and even the font of the Type 1 over there on the front part of the cockpit. So yeah, that's pretty fun. Here are my upgrades. As you can see, my hull is at level 2. Shields are at level 3. Weapons are getting up towards level 3. And then missiles are level 3. Actually, before we get into the gameplay, let me also show you some of these options, just to kind of show you. So I have my y-axis inverted. That's pretty standard for shooters. Here's an interesting thing, though. So auto fire. You have missiles, which lock on and recharge, and you choose when to fire those. But you also have basically like a short-range weapon. I guess it could be a machine gun. You can actually change the weapon later on. but you can set that to fire automatically. And we'll get into why you might want to do that. I guess right now. Because here's the thing: is this game has a very cluttered presentation. So whereas normally, like in Star Fox, I can just fire my cannons and then do the lock-on. This game has a little bit of a different system where those two are separated, and then instead of having the bombs, which kind of just clear the screen in Star Fox, in this game your cannons and your missiles are separated, and then you don't have a bomb. Now, normally I would want to just fire my machine gun manually.
Copy, Bravo 1. Begin scouting the area.
But in this game,
Genesis freaks skulking around, I bet. This is our chance to shine.
Fully voice acted, also. In this game, first of all, once you set it to auto, you cannot manually fire your guns, which might seem kind of weird, but I guess that's the penalty. So the guns just fire automatically, and because like it happens so quickly, it's kind of a muted weapon. You know, it's not your main weapon. Your main weapon are the missiles.
They are armed. Watch out for enemy fire.
And also, this is not a sim, so you know you have some pretty basic flight controls. They're responsive, but the thing is, the game is on rails, so occasionally you start turning, and that's when the game can get a little cheap, I guess you could say, because that's when the camera feels like it's too close in, and you can't see where you're ahead of yourself, and it's sometimes hard to even tell which direction you're really going. Like the path forward, basically. And that's when things like the machine gun, you know, kind of lose value because you're not like fine-tuned controlling your ship. It's more of an arcadey experience. So with that in mind, giving up a little bit of control for that weapon is probably preferable. So yeah, this is it. I mean, this part right here is like straight out of Star Fox. Obviously, it's not as inspired and timeless as that game, but it has a pretty neat design. Definitely looks good, and I think there's even like a healthy amount of lore and story. We'll have to see how that goes as far as you know, as the game continues, basically.
Copy that, Bravo 1. Evac the area. We'll send a cleanup squad.
I will say, everything you've seen here in this video is the story. Like, there's no cutscene that I skipped over or introduction or anything like that. So it does feel very dry. Like, you don't see the characters outside of the ship. You don't really get a feel for them being characters that, you know, don't always inhabit a ship. So, you know, in that regard, like, Star Fox does a much better job. But again, this is a $10 game, so without, you know, very high expectations, I would say that it does a serviceable job of, like, immersing you in the story. So I do want to finish up and get back into the menu screen. And then I'm going to continue playing this and kind of build an opinion of it. So far it's been very fun. I did have that little bit of disappointment where, you know, I basically felt the end of the tutorial like made me suffer a little bit too much more than I needed to, and made me grind for points that I, you know, wasn't really interested in getting.
Bravo 2, we've reached the extraction point.
Copy, Bravo 2. Good job. HQ
That's
out.
hardly the worst thing I've seen in gaming. So yeah, that's Redout. Oh, and yeah, so at the end of the round, you get you have a card equipped, or you should, and then you're going to get awarded 2 random cards. They have a benefit. Since I'm already, like in chapter 2, I already have a better card than these, so I can just discard these. But I'll get their monetary value, which you can see at the bottom, 200 for each of those green ones. So I select my blue card, and then at the end I get awarded some points. Now that should be enough to buy me, I think, maybe 1 level of something, at least some of the cheaper upgrades that I haven't gotten as far. Another weird thing is there's no like garage option. So yeah, I have to go actually into the mission screen to upgrade. Not a major gripe, but I kind of just wish I had a standalone screen to do that. So yeah, 710. Let's keep upgrading that weapon. I only need 2 more slots to get it to level 3, and then we'll kind of see if it becomes more viable. I'm curious to see if this game like really opens up, or if by level 9 it's just kind of very repetitive. I don't see a ton of depth, but like Star Fox, like kind of its brilliance is that it's short and sweet, and of course it never got a sequel, so we don't know what an extended Star Fox experience is really like. We may have not enjoyed it as much. It's kind of a testament to that game that it has so much variety in its levels, but it's hard to pull that off consistently. And this game definitely feels a little bit more like it's going for the basic feel and not trying to get a ton of mileage out of like, ooh, wow, this level really stands out as being special, at least so far. So we'll see. There are 9 chapters, and depending on how many missions each one has, that could change the length of the game. I don't think it's going to end up being a very long game, but hopefully it's enjoyable enough. Anyway, thanks for checking it out. So that's Redout, Space Assault. Hopefully those controller options that I highlighted at the beginning are helpful and improve your experience with the game. But I think either way, for $10 on PS4, if you like Star Fox and have missed it for now decades, I think you owe it to yourself to play this game. Especially at its price point. But anyway, that's it for me. So thanks for checking it out. Bye.